Inglewood.
Aloha kako and welcome to the show. How we doing this week, folks? I am on the road and on my way to Comic-Con San Diego 2022. Excited. For those of you going to be in SD for the big show, look out on that schedule. See you Friday. And actually, I'm really excited on the fact that we're not just playing the regular old venue. We got a spot at the library, the coolest place ever, right? So I'll see you at the library. We're in an awesome hall. It actually looks like a million times cooler than one of those stuffy little conference rooms. So yeah, and if you don't make it, we'll catch you in the halls. On to announcements. ʻīao Valley is closing in August until 2023. So get your trips in, pay your respects, and then close your eyes and hope to open them to a beautiful sight in the year to come. This week's show is going to be a little bit shorter and different than usual. We're going to rip through some things. We're going to talk about stuff, but we finally reached Flat Earth Dave. So welcome to the Flat Earth Crisis. So later on at the end of this episode, treat yourself to trying to understand the machinations of a mind that believes the Earth is flat. So who's the crazy ones here, us or them? I think we know the answer, kids, but you know what? This is, I feel interviews like these are a great test for us, especially in election season. I think that after I get past the primaries and have to start asking tougher questions, things like this guy are important to me. I mean, whether or not I agree with him, I don't. Totally believe the Earth is a globe, along with like 99% of the human race. But, I mean, in America, we have an interesting contingent of nearly 40,000 or more people that do believe still that the Earth is flat. But there are also people who believe that, there's a hollow Earth filled with, like, lizard people and stuff. So, and then there were people dumb enough to think that there was, like, a basement underneath a pizza joint selling children. So, I mean, anything's possible in the mind of Americans these days. So stay tuned to the end. And, we'll talk a little bit more before we get to his interview. But yeah, it's an exercise in understanding. I'll leave it right there until we get to the end. But moving on to local coverage. Guess what, guys? Indoor masking, optional in classrooms, okay? So all you guys have been kvetching about, like, save our keikis, unmask our keikis, all that stuff, while you were out disrespecting the, more than 500,000 people who died in America by leading into anti-vaxxer bullshit and propaganda. Thanks a lot, assholes. That's why we have the BA5 variant, okay? Just a reminder. Thank you to everybody who did get their shots. I think I just have to make it a regular thing to state this because you know what, guys? This took as long as it did because we did not reach a formal herd immunity, okay? So those things weren't reached, and that's why it took so long. And now it's pretty much over. This was, all we had to do was stay in our houses for 4 to 6 weeks, maybe that. But everybody else had to start coming out. I think it was very inconsiderate on everyone, especially the ignorant. But you know what? Y'all have been living in your little echo chamber out here in the Pacific, and you've been crying that, you've been under some totalitarian rule. Meanwhile, the world is moving on and has been moving on. And I mean, shit, why are you even complaining about it? Your kids are all out of school. It's summer. So not only your kids were unmasked 2 weeks ago, and then, now it's optional. So move on with your lives, okay? Just learn to be more considerate. In consideration of things, Turo rates drop as the car rental market's kind of like stabilizing, you know? I mean, we're kind of back to the normal. We're not the new normal anymore. We're really trying to go back to the normal. And as it seems, Turo rates are going like plummeting through the ground. But that was going to happen eventually. As we went back to normal, there was going to be more rental cars on island. I mean, which is, and then also we've got cost of gas. Cost of gas goes up. How many people are actually going to want to rent the whole time? Or like, bougie families that would normally rent 2 cars are just going to like rent a car one day maybe, and then hold a hole on the bus for the rest of it. So between tourists pinching pennies and gas rates going up, which there is a little promise on the horizon after President Biden's trip this last week, that he says the gas is going to go down in like 2 weeks, and it should reflect at the pump. But like, I don't know how like a fist bump with a prince is going to get us less gas. So you decide. All right. Speaking of which, let's cover the continent. The campaign propaganda system is going nuts out on the continent, and it's even infecting Hawaii's campaigns. That's a good part of why I've kind of stepped back a little bit, and you haven't heard new episodes yet. There's a lot of stuff that's making me wary of talking to certain candidates moving forward. There's certain things that are making me wish to please do not vote for some of these people moving forward. I, in good ethical standing, cannot tell you who and who not to vote for, but we can talk about them, and we will as we get to the primary. So after Comic-Con, it's going to be data dump time. We're going to tell you who's got the dirt where and what's lying around. Going to get feelings from the public, hoping to go for a little man on the street time and see what the people actually say. I spent a fair part of the last week before I hit the tarmac and, talked with a lot of families, Kanakas, localized newbies, the whole 9 yards. So all people who have a right to vote in Hawaii, but, some people completely informed, some people smoking conspiracy out the crack pipe. It's very interesting what Hawaii's going through. A lot to adjust to, moving back home. Some things stay the same. Some things surprisingly get crazier. So be on the lookout for unnecessary rhetoric and word salad. That's a lot of what stains the Republican Party in the aftermath of Trump, is that like he put on a show and now everybody thinks because he did that once and won that way that they can all do that. It's not the case. I do have to say that I think for that little ounce of me that sympathizes with Uncle Joe up there is that he even kind of is feeling the aftermath of the propaganda age, because some news even likes it now because they know it gets a headline. So it's silly at the lengths that society is going to maintain something that it said it didn't like 6 years ago. So now that we've buttered the bread upside down and continue to eat it, we're just going to keep going. I don't know about that. But, it's this is going to be one hell of an election. And you guys need to pay attention, okay? Especially since none of you are paying attention to regular news, okay? So now I've got to be a vanilla news because you don't want to go and get vanilla news. What's with that? There was an interesting chart I was checking out recently, and, news listings on the decline, okay? So I know you guys like it more anecdotal these days. Who doesn't? But facts are facts, okay? So, like, maybe if you're not liking what NBC or CNN or Fox or Newsmax or any of those guys or OAN have to say, go watch it direct on C-SPAN. They give that shit free away, okay? They give that away for free so you can be informed for free. And there's not enough people on them. sometimes, it lulls you to sleep. It's like reading the back of a cereal box. But guys, how else are you going to know what's going on in your country? And if all you got to do is turn on your TV to do it, did it hurt so much? No. So do it, bro. Do it, okay? Because speaking of which, the Republican Party, well, a vast majority of it, has confirmed there was no foul play in the presidential election. I repeat, a great majority of the Republican Party has confirmed there was no foul play in the presidential election. Okay, meaning as we continue through the January 6th hearings, which have undoubtedly shown us, and on top of that, has anybody watched Unprecedented on Discovery Plus? Not that I'm throwing this in as part of my streaming review section. Gotta say, the first 2 episodes are easy to digest for Trumpers because it really does. It reels you in and makes you feel comfortable. It's not that the third one's a gut punch, because I will say this. It is done in a manner as to why I can see why Discovery Plus bought the streaming rights to this, because it is an extremely middle road coverage of him. You get to take him at face value. Some of his idiosyncrasies are a little bit hilarious, seeing him in documentary format, because it's kind of like an episode of Modern Family, but like you have to like shake your eyes and unplug your ears, hoping that you didn't like partake in a weird dystopian fantasy. But it is real. It is. That's the sad part. Is dystopia was real. On top of his gaslighting of America, which is just, another chapter in Art of the Deal, gaslight the competition. It really shows us how much his kids love to paw for his attention like puppies. He dangles his fatherliness in front of them, and then regularly proclaims the necessity of being a important and successful person. But that was probably the saddest part, was watching all 3 of them try to be a piece of him and then fail miserably. Although I will have to say I've gained more respect for his daughter, because you know what? She really has tried to be an ethical person. She was one of the first people to go, the election wasn't stolen, and we need to stop talking this stupid shit. So I would call her the only patriot in the Trump family. So a salute to her for trying, but I hope he doesn't like drag her down. I hope Trump and his sons don't, try to push her. But I think, that part of her that's a mom knows better. So she kind of sees through the bullshit. Donnie Jr., on the other hand, wow. Just like learning all the crazy. I went to communist Czechoslovakia, was left alone in the woods as a child. It's like, okay, cool. But then like he had nothing but bad things to say about his home country, which means that like he was horribly indoctrinated by his parents into a system that like didn't even respect them as they tried to take over the world. And then it wasn't until they took over a whole bunch of it that everybody wanted their attention. So I think it was really interesting, like how they activated Donnie Jr. the way that they did over time. And then they slowly introduced him into stretching the truth like his father, which I thought was interesting because they covered like one of his speeches where I guess he went to like Pennsylvania to try to flip it and stuff. And there's him talking about Hunter Biden, and he's like, well, I'm such a blue collar American. And I'm just like, how? And then he goes on to talk about this job he had at a bar. And then we're only to find out that like, he didn't really show up that often. He still had his daddy's money paying for his, like he didn't use the job to survive. The job was literally like a test in a silly movie. It's like, it was like Brewster's Millions, but for Donald Trump Jr., Look, I just want you to go to Colorado and find yourself, okay? You don't really have to work. You just have to make it look like in the press. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's totally Donnie Jr. It does shed some light on if unchecked, he will run again in the next election. I'm really hoping he doesn't. I'm really hoping for a lot of other things. to happen to him instead. But the insanity looming around his appointment by the Republican Party, only time will tell. I mean, we are behind closed doors, and on paper, Republicans are clearly moving away from Trump. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to let this vocal minority club us over the head again. Okay? I'm tired of ancient white dudes swooping in at the last second and telling us we got to listen. I mean, like, for all you guys out there that are pulling all the Sleepy Joe memes, like, if Joe Biden being old is the reason that we shouldn't be voting for him, bro, Trump is only 3 minutes behind him, okay? Just remember that. Donald Trump is only 3 years younger than Sleepy Joe, okay? So they both sleepy at this point, okay? We got Sleepy Don and Sleepy Joe, okay? Well, actually, it's Fatty Don. Yeah, Fatty Don Arbuckle. But anyways, it's kind of a race at that point of who will fall asleep or who will die of cardiac arrest. And especially, like, why would you vote for an old-ass approaching 80 geezer who drinks Coca-Cola and eats Big Macs every day, like, religiously? And, I mean, and the dude woke up late every day. I mean, I can wake up late and do a podcast. I think that's about okay sometimes. But, like, sleeping in 4 hours every day when you're the leader of the free world, now that's a problem. And then also over golfing. I mean, dude took more days off than any other president, and in some cases, more than some presidents combined. So please, can we just move on from, like, the worst dude bro choice ever? And also, people of color out there, I mean, we can be Republicans. It just doesn't mean we should be picking shitty candidates. I mean, think about this, guys. Why are y'all playing Uncle Tom for a damn dude who doesn't even think about you? Like, why aren't you supporting a candidate that looks like you, that has thoughts like you, instead of being gaslit by word salad, pretending to be you, but sitting there in an old white, wrinkly skin suit? Okay? So, move along. Let's start searching for new candidates, because I don't want to have to pick between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, okay? I don't want to have to go vote Democrat. I like to go find someone who's fiscally responsible to keep things towards the middle and maybe keep the country on track. And you can too. I don't know, but, like, I'm begging you, Republicans, get your shit together. And speaking of shit, we need to get together. Dude, like the upside down, backwards world that is the war on drugs. Well, I mean, take it back to the beginning, and we can all thank Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon for that. But as we approach the new age of what is really now a problem, what started as a shitty joke, that is now become millions of pills laced with fentanyl, seized in Inglewood, California. Now, this is big. You need to think about this because, like, this shows us where the chain is. We just recently got hit on Big Island. There was that whole shipment that came in from Washington State. Okay, so this means that, like, it's getting up California. It's getting all the way to Washington. Okay, it's already known that it's across the Rust Belt, throughout the Bible Belt, all those flyover states that we forget about. Okay. And what's more disturbing is that it's turning out more and more that people are looking towards fentanyl because it is fatal. So really, you got to have an open mind towards those who are struggling with this addiction, all right, to really break it down at a psychological level, okay? We've got a bit of a problem here. People are actually looking for the effect that's the scariest part, is they're looking for the effect of death, because the idea of tempting death is better than living most days for these people. We are slowly being boiled alive, and most people just don't get that, how broken this economy is. I mean, we're at 80% productivity increase since the 1970s and less than a 7% increase in pay. Think about that, folks. Okay? Do you know what it's like for animals to be boiled alive? All right? There's, you don't see the terror because a lot of it is trying to keep composure in order to survive those last seconds. And that's where a lot of middle-class America is, slowly touching the bottom of the pan and singeing their feet to it as the skin attaches. And then they get stuck, bobbing up and down again as the water boils, screaming for help, but then unable to scream. Why? Because the heat has pushed all of the air out of their lungs. That's the dystopia we live in. People are drowning in hot water right now, all right? And they want that escape. Fentanyl and fentanyl-laced things offer that escape. And as scary as that sounds, we need to just be more aware for those people facing that addiction and that problem. So if you or someone you know, needs help, get out there. And if you're that someone, the Suicide Hotline is always there, man. All right? Which, by the way, National Suicide Hotline changed to 988. Remember that, folks. You don't have to dial a 1-800 number anymore. All right? So please think of each other, especially in this coming election. It's going to be a rough year. You're going to see a lot of corporations forcefully changing the economy just to make politicians look bad, and you got to see through that, all right? Just like what we got with the gas right now, okay? So, yes, I don't like Biden as much as the next person, but I also don't like idiot Trump-publicans, okay? But I will tell you this, why is the price of gas either plateauing at this shitty level or continue to go up in certain cases if the cost of them never went up, okay? And that's what we got to think about. So, but I digress, and we're going to take a little break and listen to a word from Newsly. When we come back, we'll talk a little pop culture, and then I'm going to go deep in the cave and talk to Flat Earth Dave. All that and more in just a moment.
Moving forward.
We live in a fast-paced world where many people are too busy to sit down and read books or news articles. But thanks to Newsly, you can now listen to the news you wish you had the time to read. By utilizing AI technology, a natural human voice reads you the news, helping you grasp the information faster and more efficiently. Newsly provides the latest news updates 24/7, letting you browse articles from topics you choose. It even has podcasts, including ours. And listeners of Rabbit Holes can get their first 30 days of premium for free, allowing you to enjoy an ad-free experience by using the special promo code in our episode description. So download Newsly today for free on iOS and Android, or visit www.newsly.me so you can stay updated on the things that matter to you.
Moving forward.
Wow, what a season for finales and even a couple late premieres. But before we talk about those, Garth Drabinsky added to the do not work list as complaints stack up. Cast members speaking out. Personally, I think it's about time that we start labeling the people as a do not work instead of the productions. Because, production, that's just going to, there's a lot of people that get attached to a sinking ship. So I think this is good that we're now starting to use call-out culture by name with these DNWs, whether it's on stage or on screen. I'd like to see more personally because there's a lot of exploitation filmmaking and theater going on right now. And people are giving up their lives and willingly dying in order to just get exposure. And most of these people are just doing it as a craft. They're not doing it for celebrity. They do it to, find their inner self and express it to the world. But enough about the sad side of pop culture. Let's move on to the fun. Miss Marvel finale on Disney+. Guys, did you catch it? Spoilers coming because you know what? I was late. and I finally caught it. Actually, I watched the last 2 episodes together, which I gotta say the time travel episode was pretty awesome. The second that paradox came in, I was like, no, this has been planned from the get. It was come all along. Well done on that. Well done on the whole series, really. Like, she's definitely the break in the superhero cycle. We needed her in Multiverse of Madness, which I did rewatch that on the plane. It's we are getting kind of superhero fatigue right now, but it's really nice to get a different type of story. You know, they're kind of just proving that superhero is just another lipstick to put on as far as movie types and formulas. So if you can hide something else in that formula, it helps resell it again. So I don't know. I really think that Ms. Marvel has changed the monotony a bit. I do like the fact that, like, the resolution with her mom and her tutu at the end of the season, that was probably like the coolest part. Seeing positive resolution in families is kind of a cool thing, especially for people of color in cinema, because we're usually only seen as like houses on fire and government's taking everything away and we're kind of destitute type of stuff. So, like, for people on the rise, it's cool. I also really dug the end showdown against Damage Control. I think we're going to see a lot more of that lady come back now that she's been kicked out. But I like the fact that, like, we got that moment where, like, even the cops stood up for Kamala. So that was pretty ridiculously cool. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. If it's not for you, well, then maybe this next one is. Word is on the street, the live action Lilo and Stitch has a director. What casting and shooting looks like, I don't know yet. But with the way that, like, you know, where that they put that Doogie Kami Aloha set in over on Oahu, so, you know, I mean, they already put all the stuff in place there. So, like, easily, I'd put my money towards them shooting it over there just because of, you know, access. For all the folks on the Doogie set, maybe you could tell us, like, if you see anything going on, or unless they're going to, like, hide it on Kauai or something. I don't know, but we'll see. In due time, we shall see. We shall see. But moving to Amazon Prime, The Boys. For those of you guys out there that are into darker superhero stories, The Boys season finale. You know, I kind of been, it's been rough for me to keep in, like, the past season and a half. There was kind of a point for me halfway through the last season where I was just like, I'm kind of tired of Homelander. I'm kind of tired of the Deep. I really learned to like Starlight a lot more this season, but I kind of liked her from the get. Maeve finally got out of the rough zone as far as my point of view on her character. But I ultimately think that, like, the Soldier Boy storyline and showing the deep, convoluted, like, everything in the conspiracy that made Vought put their machine together. I mean, I thought that was kind of cool, but you can hear it in my voice. I'm telling you right now, I don't know if we can take another season of this show. I think for me, this might be the last season. If they make it to one more after this, I mean, they got greenlit for next season, but just something's telling me, storytelling wise, it can't go much further. We've kind of hit that point where we've shark jumped a lot. And I don't want to spoil much of that, but let me know in the comments. It just seems like it's time for the boys to start getting ready to pack it up and go home. Especially since, no, I can't spoil that part because you know what? Nope. No. But Butcher, that's all I'm gonna say. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds finale. I dug it. We got to get a little peep into the future. I have been digging this whole, how do we get Pike? How does this happen that we get more years out of him? And we're about to find out how hard it's going to get on the timeline because his new future self just came back in time with a Klingon time crystal and took him forward a few years to show him what changes. It was a very like Ghost of Christmas Future type of trip. So I kind of feel that like secretly, Strange New Worlds is just a giant like It's a Wonderful Life for Captain Pike type of thing, or kind of like it's weird. So like, but like a reverse, we get to see a world where he survived, but then at the same time he's constantly gonna try to be as ethical as possible. So I mean, it's rough. I mean, to think about the consequences now, because now he has sight on changing the future. He's now changed it vastly for the worst. So, man, Romulan war, anyone? But before I spoil that, dude, What We Do in the Shadows, Season 4 just premiered. I think back into that same sentiment I had with The Boys. When is the end coming for What We Do in the Shadows? I mean, I love the show, but the jokes are getting a little old. I felt that, like, how they brought everybody back to the house so quickly was way too quick. I was kind of hoping we get a little bit of road time with Nadia and Guillermo. I mean, I knew that we were never going to get, they'll probably save it to the very last day, but there's no getting Guillermo as a vampire anytime soon. But that would ultimately resolve an important character, and that would have to end the show. But at that aspect, like, I'm kind of ready. It was fun with Kristen Shaw coming back. The jokes with the Wraiths are getting a little campier. I think they're just trying to return more to their roots, but it's just not working because of how deep they've gone with the story and with everything. It's cool. I'm going to keep watching the season. They haven't lost me yet, but I will have to say they need to step it up a tidbit. Just a tidbit. Yeah. And with that, I'm going to take my opinions to Comic-Con next week, kids. Hope to see you there. Friday, we'll be in the San Diego Library in this really cool hall. We got an event page listed on Facebook. I'll make a little reminder on the gram. And then we shall talk the good talk about podcasting, how to turn your show into an AM pirate radio broadcast locally, and more. Just before I go, I got to say, wow, what an interesting world we live in with what the James Webb Telescope has shown us. These are one of the reasons right here why I don't think we need the TMT if we've got an amazing telescope that we can put at a Lagrange point between the Earth and the sun and watch the rest of the universe go by. I think that takes care of it. Why do we need another one? So like, put more in space. Fine. Just don't make too much trash in space, because I'm sure one day we're going to find out we're ruining like a space whale ecosystem or something. But I'm going to post those telescope photos if you haven't seen them yet. Maybe even write a couple things about it and how fantastic it is. I think I might even have to write a short fiction story to go with it. But thanks for coming on the ride with me this week, folks. I thank you all for your support, whether I'm at home or on the road. It's always great hearing your thoughts in the DMs. Thanks for keeping up with me. And now we go to Flat Earth Dave. As you guys know, this guy hit me up in my gram feed a few weeks ago and was like, I'm going to blow your mind. Well, like I said before, he's not going to blow my mind. And he didn't. So I got to say, I watched all the other stuff that he did. I've watched all the things he did. He even talks about this whole, like, prove me wrong and I'll give you 3 Bitcoin. But it's kind of hard to prove someone wrong who has cognitive dissonance. It's interesting because, I watched a lot of people try to do takedowns on him. And then there was just all the people who were just as, shall we say, misguided as him, that are just overtly pro. As the man in the middle, I'm wondering why. And that was the thing that I talked with Sarah before she went on break, and with John when he special guested last week, was like, how do we approach this? You know, because it's the same way in dealing with people with anti-vax, you know, people who are still hung up on the big lie, you know, all of the, you know, the gaslighting from the news and all these other things. So it's just like, how do we learn to approach it? Because you can't just bop it on the head and tell it's wrong. You can't just yell at it. You can't put it in the corner. You can't cut it off from society anymore because the internet exists now. So like shunning's not even completely 100% effective now. It is no longer an effective social contraceptive. So the best thing we can do to move forward is to understand. So I let you know right now that this is not a pro-flat earth discussion that I have with him. It is merely an attempt at trying to understand what got him to being a flat earther. And as you'll find out that, you know, not verified anywhere else, but then one day he finds himself at the water cooler. And he becomes water cooler popular at work, and then realizes that he has, you know, enough of a support system. I would love to know how many people at his work actually rallied around his table, because there tends to be legend in your own mind capabilities when it comes to things like that, and especially since he is part of an extreme minority of belief in America, the likelihood is pretty minimal that everybody in his office or wherever he was. But I think because he lays out a lot of things that he says that he learned or he talked to people along the way, I'm not really centered anymore on how can I prove to him that the earth is a globe without taking him to outer space. Because, I mean, I just have to be like, you know, Elon Musk rich, which he did call out Shatner as part of being part of the conspiracy. So listen to that for yourself. I hope to be fist bumping Shatner this week, and maybe I will ask him if I get a passing chance. I'd probably eat out my right arm if I could go talk to Shatner about this. So if somebody with access to him is listening, let's hook it up, bro. Because I think in moving forward, because I will talk to him again. That's going to be the crazy part, is I asked him to come back on again in the future, just like the politicians. It's not some Geraldo thing, okay, guys? I'm not going to take you on some weird trip one day and we're all secretly going to become, you know, flatties in the end. No, we're not. Globies all the way, I guess. Maybe we'll you know what? Maybe we'll have to create Globie propaganda so that way I can fight the flat earth propaganda. Yeah. And then we'll also figure out how to talk to them like they talk to us. And maybe that translation, I don't know. I don't know if it's universal translator or cognitive dissonance, but we'll figure out between one and the other on how to get through. So it's going to be more of a test of patience, really. And I think that that's like what we really need in the election, is a test of patience. So think about that with your neighbors, with your friends, finding common ground. As I try to find common ground with a man who legitimately thinks that the earth is flat. Folks, it's been proved for a long time. We know it, you know. There's some interesting parts where he does he'll use science to pick apart science, but then discredit science. So I don't think that there's a complete rational awareness of the misuse. I mean, this is probably going to be the meanest thing I'll say, is this is like a kid with a loaded gun. That like, we all know what bullets do, but we don't know the ramifications of them. And that's what I think this is. But luckily, mankind has evolved to a stature that really, I mean, we're not really buying into this. We're more or less using this as entertainment now. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see as it develops. So keep an open mind that this is no way an endorsement of flat earth theories, conspiracies, mumbo-jumbo, etc. This is a foray into the mind of a man who believes that the earth is flat, and what he will say in order to remain right. Wow, that almost that almost sounded like an opening the Twilight. Imagine a man, Flat Earth Dave, a man who thinks the world is flat. All right, folks. Well, hope you enjoy my talk story with Dave, and can't wait to see any of you who make it to the con, and I look forward to seeing you back on the ʻīao when I return. Aloha.
Moving forward.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with a crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they're hard to trace. Don't be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Moving forward.
Aloha. Oh, we were playing tag. It was I call you, you call me, we get straight to voicemail.
I was at
Such is the game.
my mic, that's all.
How are you today, sir?
Doing all right. What's going on? Ready?
Yeah. We got you dialed in already. Hopefully our connection stays good and the trade winds don't take them away. So thank you for, showing up on my Instagram feed.
That make perfect circles around the center.
What was that?
On a flat Earth map. The trade winds make, if you chart them on a flat Earth map, they make beautiful circles around the center of the flat Earth.
Really?
Yeah, they do.
Interesting.
Pretty coincidental, don't you think?
Well, I have to say that I've actually watched a lot of your videos. I watched a lot of your interviews with people that are on your side and a lot of people that are not on your side. And I think per my audience and how we've been discussing you these past few weeks, people want to know the people within the movement more than anything else. I mean, I will have some questions in a moment about like what kind of flat earther are you, because I feel that there's some definable separations, like because not even every form of belief has the same belief system. So like I'd really like to pinpoint like where do you fit in and how you feel about some of the other models. But like let's start with the hows and whys Flat Earth Dave was born, man. Like what was the turning points in your life that made you seek out this idea or changed your mind or moved you in this direction, man?
Yeah, basically we all have the same story. I'll tell you mine real quick. I was in the business world working for a corporation. I started my own company. But when I was working for the corporation, my buddy and I that we worked together, we would discuss different deceptions going on in the world. We were conspiracy analysts, not theorists, analysts. And one of the big things we talked about was the Federal Reserve, how it's not federal, how it's a private bank, and how basically they're just making money out of thin air. And everybody was kind of amazed at this. And every day at lunch, people literally would gather waiting for us to come into the lunchroom. And, we have, 10, 15 people, hanging around. And then one day, my buddy Tim goes, hey, we got to reach more people with this information. We have an opportunity to do a podcast out of New York City at a podcast studio at the Stand Up Comedy Club, but it has to have an element of comedy to it. So I got my friend who's a comedian. We'll be the truth seekers, and he'll turn everything into a fart joke. And I said, cool, what's a podcast? I had no idea. He's like, it's a recorded radio show. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we started doing it. Our first one was 9/11. We got it. We blew the doors off the place. Like, all the management was like absolutely freaking out. Jumping way forward, 2 years later into the podcast, people started sending me stuff on Flat Earth. Hey, Dave, have you looked into Flat Earth? I first thought it was a joke, just ignored it, deleted. Then I started banning people from our social media for even suggesting that I watch a video. And it was getting quite annoying. There was a couple of very annoying Flat Earthers. Flat Earthers can be annoying. And because they're so passionate. And then one day, talking to a researcher who I respect very much, Sophia Smallstorm, don't know if you know who she is.
Yes.
And we were talking about there was some crazy, stupid events that were going on. I'm like, Sophia, there's so much deception in this world. It's really hard to fathom. And she goes, oh, David, it's worse than that. I think the Earth might be flat. And I said, are you freaking kidding me? She goes, here, watch these videos. And she sends me, Mark Sargent's Clues, I think Eric Dubé's 200 Proofs. And I was like, reluctantly watched them. And then I started watching more. YouTube kept feeding me, hey, you like that? Check these new videos out. And they started feeding me all the great content that was coming up. And so then I don't just believe videos. I ended up spending $1,000 on a Nikon P900 super zoom camera, tripod, went down to the beach, zoomed in on beaches, people sitting at the water's edge that should be 15, 20 feet below the curve. I'm like, well, maybe the Earth is just bigger than they're telling us. And, for 6, 7 years now, I've been trying to prove the globe, but I realized it's never going to happen because the globe is hypothetical nonsense.
Interesting. Full preface, man, before we go deeper, the thing that I noticed the most about when you talk to other globies or, round world theorists or whatever, man, I just want you to know, I don't want this to get anywhere into a denigration of each other. Like I saw your Professor Dave.
You're talking about Professor Dave, who's not a professor. He's a chill. That's why you saw that, because YouTube will feed you that, because they think it's damaging. But what happened with that video, he has 2 million subs.
Right now, a future president could be running as a local candidate on your ballot.
There should have been
This person is vying to represent
minimum.
you, your family,
because
and
they're
your
all
community.
fake. They're all bots.
Do you
they're
know
all
what
trolls.
they are and what they stand for?
His videos
Vote
are fed to you.
411.org is your tool for accurate and unbiased,
he gets
up-to-the-minute
compensated
election
for that.
information on a candidate's running local races.
I'm actually going to
Just
respond
enter your
to a little
address
bit
to
of
get
that
started.
right there. Not
Your
much
vote
is
is
actually
your
fed
power.
to me.
The power to
I
decide
actually,
who
long
represents
before this, I
you
used
in
to be a content
2022
data analyst,
and
so I live
beyond.
with a very
Get online,
clean search
get the
engine.
facts,
Most
and
of
make
the
your
internet
voice
knows
heard
nothing
in
about my
election
personal
day.
habits, which allows me to research things much easier because I only go and find what I'm interviewing people for. So I will say I watched the documentary that you suggested on a couple of your videos. I watched the
Next Level 2022.
Yeah, and so I've been spending ever since you propositioned me 2 months ago, man. I was like, I'm glad that I had 2 months of time, because in that way, I really feel that the heart of it now is talking about the hows and whys of the people, because I feel that you have those conversations out there about what each of these things mean and how developmentally you've tried to narrow down your conjecture for proof. So I really think that, especially per my type of listeners, they're really more interested, especially out here in Hawaii, just because it's kind of it's an interesting subject for us to talk about, being world navigators. So I don't want you to feel at any point in time that I'm coming off with some sly maneuver on you or anything, but I really just
no worries.
Open heart and open mind, man, because I like to be able to have conversation with all walks of life of people. So we may not always agree, and I might have a question to ask you further in this that just please explain it. But so outside of that, so what is your background in life? So let's put aside the how you got there. So what are you by trade before you became a man searching to prove flat Earth?
I've always been, outgoing, always creating small little businesses for myself. I started as a kid, snow shoveling business and lawn cutting. And then, I went to college and got my business degree. I got a psychology degree, and I took a lot of astronomy. And then I went into corporate America, And, I do a lot of studying. I've been studying this flat Earth longer than anything else in my life, all studying in my life combined, I would say, because it's been nonstop since 2014, every single day. So to say, what are my qualifications? 7 years of uninterrupted study.
Okay. So I think that's interesting that you had previous study in astronomy. So like, how does that fit in with your new belief system? Like in retrospect of like, how much of that did you leave behind? How much of that stayed with your belief system?
So we had access in my college to a rooftop observatory, pretty decent sized one, and we booked clocked many hours in there. But one of the rules was do not look at the moon; it'll hurt the lens. And I'm like, how the hell can the moon hurt the lens if you can use this thing during the day, which has more light because the moon's too bright? So what do we do as college kids? We stared at the moon and we were looking for the lunar rover. We're looking for all of the debris, and we could never find anything. And I'm like, we just, it's a big moon, and I kind of wrote it off. And then we would look at all the stars, and of course Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, and we would see kind of what they show us in the books, but not quite as high res as Disney and NASA show us. And they look like spheres. And Jupiter is 500 times bigger than the Earth, or whatever they say, and Mars is about the same size as Earth, maybe a little smaller. And you have no way of knowing how big something is. I mean, if you scale and something, I could show you a baseball at 10 feet away, then I can get another baseball that's twice the size and show you at 20 feet away. And if you had nothing to back it up to on distance, you would think it's a normal sized baseball. So we would just have to go along belief on what they told us, and then we'd go observe and go, I see Saturn. Yep, I see those rings of ice reflecting sunlight perfectly, evenly. It's like it's a light itself, and you never really put it in. And one thing they don't teach you there is to actually do the science and actually say, well, how can the moon be that bright if it's reflecting sunlight? How can Jupiter, so far away from the sun, be reflecting light back to Earth almost as bright as the sun? And that it doesn't make any sense. And then when you actually do the math, you find out it's scientifically impossible. And then you're like, oh, how far are these stars? And Polaris, which we all see in the north, is 433 light years. And if you do the math, you couldn't see Polaris at a light week away. Okay? But it's 433 light years away, and we could see it with our naked eye. So, then you could do the math. Like, if you look at the moon, there's going to be a big moon out tonight. If you go look, it'll be in the day sky for a while. The crater at the bottom of the moon, I think it's called the Enceladus crater. I'm not good with the names, but it's the biggest, most observable crater, and it's supposedly 50 miles wide. Well, if you scale that down with the size and distance to the moon, that would be like seeing something about a tenth of a mile wide at 450 miles away. Well, if you ever tried to view things in the distance, if you could see 100 miles, there's no way you can see something with your naked eye a tenth of a mile. And 500 miles away, absolutely ridiculous. But we all see it. So again, it's easy to believe, and you can just believe that we see the moon the way they tell us and never go in and check these things that I just told you. I just told you some information. If you go and actually do the work yourself and find out, well, what he's saying is true and it's scientifically impossible, how am I seeing it? And the answer is you have a theory what the moon is, throw it out because it's just been disproven.
Okay, well, so then now that we've transitioned into your conjecture system, I really like to divinate and separate. There's quite a few different flat Earth crowds. So I guess my first thing I'd have to fully ask, because I feel that you don't get to answer some of these questions properly when you're being interviewed by people antithetical to your belief system. So I would have to say, so I'm just going to go down the checklist first. So this is more out of your personal scientific research than a religious belief, correct?
Oh, 100%. Now I always say the Bible has over 200 flat Earth proofs in it, but if you don't believe in the Bible, what good are those proofs? They're no good. I don't believe in the Bible. I'm not even sure if I completely believe in the Bible now, but what I say is, look, you can scientifically prove this, and it also says it in the Bible. I never lead with the Bible. My co-host on the Flat Earth podcast was Matt Long. He comes from the Bible side. It was kind of a good mix. But, if you fully believe in the Bible, then you can, have some weight on you. But I'd rather just go with the science.
All right. So then, then the other thing that I have to ask, because then there's another, I've noticed that it's not like a huge sub-crowd or split off, but I've noticed that over the years, there's a slight convergence between the flat Earth and hollow Earth theorists. Do you have any point of view on that?
Yeah, there's no convergence at all. The hollow Earth theory was thrown out there for the people that were discovering that Admiral Byrd found more land, and they threw it out there because the hollow Earth is the same as the globe Earth. It's a prison for your mind. It limits your thoughts. The Earth is an extended plane. But if you put yourself on a ball, there's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to discover, Truman. You remember that scene? He wants to be an explorer. There's nothing else to discover because you're going around in circles, and that's it. So the hollow Earth is a psyop completely. In my opinion, there's no proof of it because you still have to have curvature, just the opposite in there. But with that said, I do believe that there is a serious underworld going on here. There's tunnels all over this Earth. I believe there's tunnels connecting other lands beyond Antarctica. There may even be other layers of civilization, different densities, more dense below us and a heavenly less dense above us. But those are all things that we can speculate on all day long until we have proof. They're just speculation.
Okay, so then this intrigues me more. So you're positing that. I did explain this to some people who listen to my show that within this. The flat Earth posit is that there's the whole idea of that Antarctica is a shelf that we can't get past, but you're saying that per your open ideas to what's beyond that the firmament could continue and not just be what we think it is this current disk model you have.
So and again, these are things that I'm not. I have my theories. I have lots of supporting evidence, but until we are allowed to go explore beyond the shorelines of Antarctica, we're not going to know for sure. So my main point is we as humans should have the right to go explore our world, but we're being gate-kept. There's 7 or 8 islands spread around, islands and land points, military bases spread evenly around the perimeter of our world that stop us from independently exploring Antarctica. Yes, you could spend $10,000 to $50,000 or more to go to the little island off of Santiago, and that's a giant island. It's bigger than some countries, but that's all they'll show you. There's some ice there, some penguins, and they kick you out. No one's allowed to explore the outer lands. There may be a massive amount of worlds beyond Antarctica. The way I describe it is just like we're on a lake, and our world is a lake. The shoreline of our lake is Antarctica. If you sail to the edge of the lake, which is south, any direction away from the center, which is north, is south, you get to the edge. You don't fall off. You step up onto the land, and you go, hike out, and then you find another lake, another world.
So then what would you say about explorers and even in recent years, these yachting clubs that have professed their ability to circumnavigate Antarctica?
Yeah, so those are pretty cool boats. Are you a sailor?
I come from a nation of sailors, and I actually have multiple uncles who have personally circumnavigated the entire globe in its aspect. Do you by any chance know anything about the history of sailing in Hawaii?
Maybe a little bit if you ask me, but let me make my point here. The race that you're talking about circumnavigates not quite Antarctica. It's actually closer to 50 degrees south. Antarctica is like 70 degrees south. And those boats are pretty fast boats, right? In just a little wind, they go pretty quick, but there's some serious winds, and those boats are flying. You can water ski behind some of those boats. Mm-hmm. But the way they measure their distance is they take their readings on their location according to GPS. GPS is run by NASA, which is not a real space agency, and they calculate how far they went according to GPS. They don't have any land measurements. They're not pulling a tape measure. They're not running a line They're on the water, and they're doing it. And at the end of that race, if you calculate their speed, you want to guess what their average speed is? Please. According to GPS, because GPS is saying that they're going around a much smaller circle than they're going. Because if they're south of the equator, on the globe it gets smaller. If you get all the way to Antarctica, it's only like 11 or 13,000 miles around. But on the flat Earth, it's like 60,000 miles around because it's getting wider and wider on the flat lake. So the average speed of those boats, according to GPS, is 2 miles an hour.
Okay.
And that's because they're doing math when it says, hey, you went 100 miles today, and in reality, they went 300 miles or 500 miles or whatever the number is. Maybe, I don't know how many miles they do a day. But, if you say, okay, this is the path they took. On the globe, it's this amount of miles, and it took this amount of time, and you average it out, it's like 2 or 3 miles an hour. Those boats can go 2 or 3 miles an hour while tied to the dock. That's a little sarcasm.
Yeah, I know. I get you there, bro.
And so, by the way, I'm going to have a video featured on my app, the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, probably in about a week, about that race that just happened. And we are going to completely break it down for you. We're going to convert the course onto a flat Earth map and show you how that race is only possible and only makes sense on a flat Earth.
Well, then I would have to respond to that then with, asking deeper than, like, have you done any research or understanding into Polynesian wayfinding and how we navigate the globe?
No, do tell.
It's all analog. We all of our technology is before the introduction of the sextant. We use no GPS. It's all an analog feature. What most colonials don't know is
that there's no GPS.
There's no GPS.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We literally just use our pointer finger and our thumb, because if you put those evenly as best you can in trying to make a right angle, your hand actually forces into about a 14-degree angle, and we measure everything off the horizon like that.
I like it.
Yeah. So one thing I would love for you to check into, because I think this might lead to us having more conversations in the future if you'd be open to it. But I would really love to have like an information exchange in order of like, well, what about this versus what about that? And we come back together and talk about it. But I definitely have to suggest to you, like, it's worth checking out Hawaiian wayfinding, understanding like how many hundreds of years before the West that we actually conquered the rest of the ocean. Because most people don't realize that like the map of the world didn't expand until the 1700s. So, I mean, do you know anything about cartography?
Yeah, I do, but that's not true. All of our history is a lie. There was a worldwide advanced civilization here in the 1800s. Our Capitol building here in the United States was built before Christopher Columbus allegedly discovered America. There's another building under our building, and if you look into the mud floods and see what was really here, even in New York City and every city, you'll find a completely different story. Like the Grand Canyon, there's Egyptian buildings in the Grand Canyon. So what's that about? So once you understand that that's our history is lie, then you can start looking at the ocean. Well, large bodies of water at rest lay flat. Period. There's no balls. There's no curvature. Every test for curvature or axial rotation by accredited scientists over the last 100 years has failed and actually proven the opposite. But those tests, those experiments are hidden. We've done the actual measurements across frozen lakes in Hungary, and we've gone all over the place, and there is no curvature. So, by holding your thumb and finger out to an apparent horizon, that's really not going to tell you the shape of the Earth. You look at the horizon.
Well, I'm not using that to tell you the shape of the Earth. I'm using that to tell you that we don't rely on GPS and we can track everything using the stars and the astronomical maps.
I'm not claiming that there's other ways than GPS, but that's how the race uses GPS to determine the distances and their location.
So I think in going towards where we can develop the end of our conversation here, then the question that I would have to ask, really at the ultimate part of this, if there was ever a way in your mind to go back to a globe, would you go back to it?
Absolutely, 100%. Just one proof of the globe is all I need.
Really?
Just one. Yeah.
Righteous. No, because I will have to say that there's a level of dissonance in some, whether you believe globe or whether you believe flat or whether you just believe whatever's told to you is told to you or whatever So I like that there's this openness, because I feel that wasn't approached much in other anti-interviews with you. Yeah.
To be frank with you, I don't believe that I'll ever see it, but my mind is open. You say, well, you flat earthers will never change your mind. You forget that all flat earthers were globe believers who thought flat earth was absolutely ridiculous, and most of us refused to look. But for some reason, we took the time, we took the effort, the energy to look. I'm so confident that I won't find one that I have a standing offer out there for the last 3 years of 3 Bitcoins for 1 globe proof. And all you have to do is take the Flat Earth App Challenge or the Flat Earth Crash Course Challenge, which is watch those videos for 2 weeks, 1 a day, and at the end of that, if you have 1 globe proof, send it to me, and you win 3 Bitcoins.
All right. So I dig that there's a prove me wrong factor, and I like that. I admire that there's still an openness to be proven wrong, because I think that that's the most important thing behind any idea system, whether one believes in it or not. So that openness, I do appreciate that.
I appreciate your style of the interview. It's very enjoyable. Let's just throw this out. Let's play a little game. It's the game where you have to name a fruit that something that a piece of food that begins with a A. So I go, then you go, then I go, then you go. And whatever game you played as a kid. This is a game. I throw out a anti-globe flat Earth proof. We can see things that would require the Earth to be 1,000 times bigger than they tell us. So that proves that the Earth is not the ball that they tell us. Right, your turn.
As far as
you have a proof that the Earth isn't flat or is a globe.
Okay, so I know I kind of know where this goes, because in talking with where you've gone with other conversations. So, and that's why I wanted to go more into the hows and whys of you than anything else, because I've noticed that so then this is the part where we get into the conjecture of what's believed in this system and what's not believed in this system, and I think that that's more the important part. So say your thoughts on telescopes and satellites. So what about telescopes and satellites other than governmental organizations owning them that detract from the ability to believe them?
Well, so I believe in telescopes, and you're.
So then, how do you? Oh, actually, you know what? Fine example: the Webb Deep Space Telescope. Is that?
Oh my God! Did you see that picture that they revealed today?
So
it's a cartoon. Okay. I mean, if you look, and in my interviews, I actually almost covered it on an interview today. If you look at that, it goes up, the launch, there's so many things wrong with it, and then it unfurls in orbit around the Earth, where you can still see the curvature of the Earth, because they always have to show us the curvature of the Earth. And then somehow, it's going to go from there to 1 million miles away, to the Lagrange point, which is a balancing point between the Earth's gravity and the Sun's gravity. But that makes no sense, because they're changing distances all the time. And it's going to park itself there, and it's going to face outer space. And it can never turn around and take a picture of the Earth, because it'll hurt the lens, just like the moon would hurt the lens in the telescope that I use. Mm-hmm. Okay? These are nonsensical stories. I mean, if you look at the story of the Hubble, we had a NASA engineer, the guy that ran Hubble, and he admitted that are you still there?
Yes. Oh, I'm still here. I'm listening. We're giving you your space for this.
He admitted that the guy that runs Hubble admitted that he's never seen a live feed from Hubble. Not once. And then we also showed him Sophia. Sophia is a telescope mounted in the side of a 747 that has a big hatch that opens, and it takes pictures of the outer space. And we showed him the images from that, and he goes, no, those are Hubble images. We're like, nope. They're Sophia images. He didn't even know. The compartmentalization at NASA is insane. You don't know what the person next to you is doing.
Okay, so then, so outside of that technology, so then the people themselves that have said they've gone to space, thoughts on them?
Some are liars. Some are MK Ultra mind controlled, hypnotized, and some are just slightly retarded, like Don Pettit.
And then more recently, what about low orbit travelers like rich people and say like William Shatner when he went up there? Yeah.
And so I used to run a school fair, and we had some rides and stuff, and the town made us have a couple ambulances always on, when we're running a fair. Any sporting event, any stunt event, anything big, they always make you have an ambulance. 91-year-old, fat, out of shape, William Shatner, who is broke, got launched into space at G-forces that would make a healthy man crap his pants or pass out. And then he had 4.5 minutes of zero gravity where they only have 3 or 4 seconds of the footage of that. Okay? Where are the 4.5 uncut minutes? There's cameras all over this thing. Then he parachuted back to the desert in the middle of nowhere where the thing slammed into the ground so hard it would have broken your back and everything else. Then they wheel up, and somehow it missed every little bush. There's bushes everywhere, but it found a perfectly clear spot. Then they wheel up the red carpet and a stairwell, and out come the astronauts. And who's there to greet them? You have Jeff Bezos, you have a couple of wives, and you have a couple of unknown reporters, filming it. No medical, no doctor, no nothing. That there alone, with any amount of critical thought, will say, this is a stunt, it's not real, he never landed, and it was all just an edited video to make you think he came out of space. If you actually watch the video, you can see the fakery. You can see part of it's animated, part of it's slamming down so hard. When it lands, there's 3 parachutes, but there's only 2 parachutes at one point. It's absolute edited nonsense.
Interesting. I may have some time to run into Shatner at Comic-Con, so I'm gonna have to ask him about that.
Oh, you know what? Listen, film it. And because he was I won't say ambushed, but he was ambushed while having lunch or dinner somewhere. And someone said, what's the difference between science and science fiction? He goes, oh, there is no difference. It's the same thing. And because he was kind of like disgusted. That was an interesting comment. But, here's the thing. He cannot tell. He cannot tell, but it'll be interesting to read his face and hear what he has to say and hear how nervous he gets if you really confronted him. But we've confronted many people. We have one of our guys got what's the astronaut's name? Kelly, the one that's married to Gifford, Kelly Gibson or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And he confronted them about bubbles in space because lots of times when they're doing spacewalks, they're actually doing that in the National Buoyancy Lab, which is a giant pool that has a replica of the space station in it. And that's where the astronauts train underwater. And it has green screens in it. Isn't that interesting? Right? It has green screens in it. Why does it have green screens in a pool? And he talked to him about bubbles because we see bubbles popping here and there, going all different directions. And he got all nervous. He claimed he didn't know what he's talking about. Then he got him again. And he says, I don't even know. We totally nailed him. But again, bubbles in space. You used to be able to Google bubbles in space. But now if you Google bubbles in space, you get Simon Dan, you get Professor Dave, you get nonsense because they change the algorithms. They don't want you seeing the truth. Hope you have my app, and because that's where you're going to find the information. That's where you're going to be able to, hey, I got 5 minutes to look at a video. Bam, go to the app, hit the daily video, hit the archive button, hit the frequently asked questions button. Then you'll find the truth. But until then, and if you don't want to get the app's $3. Just go to my website, scroll down to the Flat Earth Crash Course, and you've already taken some of it. You watch the next level too, but watch the first 5 videos in that list. And then you will globe no more.
All right, man. So I kind of dig this. Challenge accepted, man. So like, before we part ways here and say our goodbyes for now, I'd like to ask you, after my schedule's free in the election season, because I'm trying to do my damnedest to interview every candidate in my state to give them a chance in this election. But after I'm done with primaries, could I catch up with you again?
Absolutely, 100%. Just reach out, and you have my direct email.
Yeah.
And we'll schedule another call. Another question: what island are you on?
Maui.
How's the kite surfing there? Is it nice?
Well, kite surfing is great. You can do that down in Kahului. There's a nice little place you can stay. over there. Man, you should come out sometime. Maybe we could take you on a boat ride as part of our challenge to figure out, which theory stands true,
there's I forget which island it is, but from one of the islands you can see another island that's, I think it's like 300 miles away.
Well, from Maui, we can actually see multiple islands at multiple distances. We're kind of at the heart of the chain. Yeah, so check out those distances. Go on the app to the Earth Curve Calculator and put in your height and then the height of the distance, and it'll tell you how much should be hidden behind a curve. So if you're at 1,000 feet or whatever, you're looking 100 miles. At 100 miles, there should be over a mile of curvature. Well, if you're seeing something that's less than a mile, well, you have to subtract 1,000 feet from it. The calculator does it. But if you're seeing something sticking way above that, well, then that's an issue. That's an issue saying there is no curve. Physical curve is unchanging. Optical curve changes on with the weather. And there's certain days that you can see some islands and certain days that you can't. That's an optical thing. But physical curve is physical. Now, the globe defenders, anti-flat earthers, trolls out there, they've succeeded to say, well, even on a globe, there is no physical horizon. You can never see the physical horizon. Well, that's ridiculous, because on a globe, the physical horizon to a 6-foot-tall person standing at the edge of calm water should be just 3 miles away. Have you scaled any major peaks on this planet yet? As far as like
Haleakala.
You've been up Haleakala?
I went up to Haleakala and rode my bike up and rode it down. It was brutal. It was cold up there.
Oh yeah, it can be. Best time to go up there is 4 a.m. We love to go up there right before the sun comes up and watch the whole thing take place, man.
I think that was my biggest peak.
Right on. Well, it's good. It's good to know that we have some common ground, and I look forward to seeing how we could continue this conversation and understand both sides of the matter. Dave, thank you for coming on today.
Hold on 1 second. I have a request for you. You go on my app and go to the friend finder and see how many blue dots are surrounding you. And you can tap on those dots and say, hey, there's a guy that lives right here in my town, right where I am. There's 10 people. And meet up, have a cup of coffee with them, have a beer, and meet some flat earthers firsthand, and let them give you their point of view.
Right on. You know what? I'm gonna check that out and see if we've got any in Hawaii. Yeah.
All right, man.
All right, brother. Well, anything you got left to say to our listeners before we dive back into what you say and come back with some more questions for you?
Yeah, don't believe anything I say. Go research it yourself, but you won't find it on Google. Go to flatearthdave.com. Tons of free info there. Or if you want to get the app, it's $3. And just go read the reviews if you're unsure about the app. It's one of the highest rated apps in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Flatearthdave.com will bring you to my website.
All right, Dave. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for trying to relate what you feel and what you know. And I look forward to understanding and trading ideas and knowledge with you in the future. Mahalo for coming on today.
All right, man. Thanks. See ya.
All right. Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Rabbit Holes is a Manava Cow production. This episode was produced by Kawika and Sarah Rodriguez. Make sure to subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast platforms to add our weekly episodes to your queue.